We would like to say welcome to the participants of the seminar on Indigenous script digitalization, reinventing lost heritages in digital society. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat now. Ladies and gentlemen, all the participants who present here all have got 3 doses of COVID-19 vaccines, and we do comply with the health protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, please kindly be informed that this seminar is organized by the School of Multimedia and the Indonesian Internet Domain Name Registry, or PANDI, in which School of Multimedia is higher education institution under the Ministry of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, I request you all to stand and join in the singing of our national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Thank you, and please be seated. Your Excellency, Minister of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, Your Excellency, Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture of the Republic of Indonesia, Honorable the Governor of the Special Region of Yogyakarta, Honorable the Head of ICT Research and Human Resource Development Agency, Ministry of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, Honorable the Head of Education and Cultural Agency of Special Region of Yogyakarta, the Head of the Board of Language Development and Training of Special Region of Yogyakarta, Honorable the Head of the School of Multimedia, the Chairman of Indonesian Internet Domain Name Registry, or PANDI, distinguished speakers, distinguished guests, participants, organizing committee, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Very good morning to all of you from here, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Welcome to Yogyakarta. Welcome to the School of Multimedia, and welcome to the seminar on Indigenous script digitalization, reinventing lost heritages in digital society. It is an honor for me, Ratri Nugrahini, for being the master of ceremony for today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have two separate sessions of today's event. The first session will be keynote speeches by the Honorable Governor of the Special Region of Yogyakarta, by the Minister of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, and also keynote speech by the Minister for Human Development and Cultural Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. And then we are going to have the second session, that is panel discussion that is attended by 5 different speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to the participants and speakers who present here, we also have participants and speakers who are virtually connected to us through Zoom meeting room and also YouTube streaming. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to invite the Honorable Head of ICT Research and Human Resource Development Agency, Ministry of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, to deliver the opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Hari Budiarto. Dipersilakan Bapak.
Good morning, Your Excellency, Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture of the Republic Indonesia, Your Excellency, Minister of Communication and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, Honorable Governor of the Special Region of Yogyakarta, or the representative, Honorable the Regent of Salman Regency, the Head of Education and Culture Agency of Special Region of Yogyakarta, the Head of the Board of Language Development and Training of Special Region of Yogyakarta, the Head of Sekolah Tinggi Multimedia, the Head of Indonesian Internet Domain Name Register, PANDI, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to deliver an opening speech and welcome all of participants, both of online and offline, one as well. Ladies and gentlemen, in the era of digitalization, there are the exchange of point of view concerning product and the culture aspect which are integrated in the international scope. This was caused by technology advance which provide so many advantage in the aspect of knowledge, enhancement of activeness, job efficiency, development of economy, increase of living standard, and our communication way with easier and faster than before. One of globalization effect is multiculturalism covered in the digital display. A saying describes the beautiful of the world lies in the diversity of its people. Hence, globalization along with multiculturalism is running together. However, not smart people realize that cyber world is a manifestation of reality in the real world. This is proven by so many programs or applications that differ with actual social and culture reality in the real world, such as diversity of language, diversity of culture, diversity of custom and belief as well. That reality is considered not having attention from the vision of globalization. Several of culture products that need to be preserved are language and alphabet. Currently, there are more than 700 local alphabet as part of Indonesia culture and literature. Several of them are Java, Bali, Sunda, Bugis, Rejang, Lampung, Karo, Pakpak, Simalungun, Toba, Mandailing, and Kerinci. Pandi cooperate with other parties keep the effort to conduct digitalization of Nusantara alphabet into internationalist domain name or IDN format. The alphabet digitalization fulfill standard of international coding technique in Unicode related with text and symbol of writing system around the world to display on the computer device, laptop, or mobile phone. The existence of digitally alphabet will enrich our community to message each other using heritage language and to preserve it as well through program entitled Connecting Indonesia by Digitalizing of Nusantara Alphabet. The alphabet digitalization will also make students easier to learn in using digital device. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all part of digital community. During our communication using both of direct and mediation, language has an important role in messaging process. According to media company report from English, where social on February 2022, the internet user in Indonesia spend on average 8 hours and 36 minutes and 3 hours and 70 minutes using social media. Based on BPS data in 2020, 17.30% of internet user and 19 to 24 years old end user and 57.07% are more than 25 years old. It means that most of internet activities are conducted by younger generation. Thus, the youth have important into to support Nusantara alphabet digitalization. The topic of reinventing lost heritage in digital society has aimed to provide evidence of existence of voice and written culture in Indonesia and international scope in the past. Ladies and gentlemen, we congratulate and very grateful to Pendi and Sekolah Tinggi Multimedia who has been cooperated to conduct this international seminar, workshop, and exhibition event. Thank you for all attendants who actively participate in the event, both to online and offline ones. Finally, here what I could say during the opening speech. Please enjoy yourself to join this international seminar event. Thank you.
Thank you for the Honorable Bapak Hari Budiarto for the opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to invite the Chairman of Indonesian Internet Domain Name Registry, Pandi, to deliver the remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Yudo Giri Sucahyo.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Governor of the Special Region of Yogyakarta, Ngarso Dalam Sri Sultan Hamengkubuwono X, Your Excellency, Minister of Communication and Information Technology, Mr. Johnny Gerald Plate, and also Professor Muhajir Effendi, the Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture, and the Honorable, the Head of Research and Development Agency, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Bapak Hari Budiarto, and also the head of the Multimedia School, Mr. Nuriza, distinguished speakers, panelists, moderators, Sarang Kulkarni, Mr. Mutu Nedur Maran, Professor Uli Kozok, and Dr. Sudono, and also Mr. M.E. Case, and tomorrow we will have a workshop, and I would like to mention the distinguished speakers, Cokorda Pramarta, Ilham Nurwansyah, and also Setia Amri Prasaja. Ladies and gentlemen, participants, distinguished speakers, panelists, moderators, as the co-host of this event, I would like to congratulate together with the Multimedia High School and welcome you to the International Seminar, Workshop, and Exhibition on Indigenous Script Digitalization. So we have three major events during this week. We have the exhibition where you can also visit the calligraphy of several indigenous script in the exhibition, and we also have this international seminar which we will have today, and tomorrow we also have a workshop. Pandi, as the registry of .id, we have a high interest on this program as part of our flagship called Mimdan, knitting Indonesia through the indigenous script digitalization. Actually part of our long project to have an internationalized domain name or IDN in the future. As you can see, the theme of this event is reinventing lost heritage in digital society. And as mentioned by UNESCO, 43% of estimated 6,000 languages are actually endangered. And every 2 weeks, at least one of those languages disappears. So one way to prevent it is actually we need to give a place in education system, and we can also prevent it through digitization and also digitalization. Language represents our values, represents our beliefs, and also represent our identity. So when it disappears, the human history, the cultural heritage that accompanies the language will also be lost. So everyone in the future, regardless of their first language, everyone should be able to access resources in cyberspace. So I do hope that all of us will get great benefit of this event, and we can take back all knowledge that we got from this event to give great benefit to our organization and also to our country. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Yudhogirus Cahyo, for the remarks. And ladies and gentlemen, now it is our time to enter the first session of this seminar. And in this occasion, it is an honor for me to invite the Honorable Governor of the Special Region of Yogyakarta, that is represented by the Acting Head of Communications and Informatics Office of the Special Region of Yogyakarta, to deliver the keynote speech. Bapak Trisaktiana MSI, the floor is now yours. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so sorry that we have rescheduled our one of our part of this seminar. So, as the representation of the Governor of the Special Region of Yogyakarta, I would like to invite Ibu Eti Kumalawati as the expert staff of the Governor of the Special Region of Yogyakarta to deliver the keynote speech. Dipersilahkan, Ibu.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Mohon maaf, kami mohonkan izin Bapak Gubernur Daerah Istimewa Yogyakarta tidak bisa hadir karena ada tugas lain. Dan baru pagi ini Pak Trisaktianya juga menugaskan kepada kami, mohon maaf agak terlambat karena kejar-kejaran. Izinkan saya membacakan sambutan tertulis Bapak Gubernur. Gubernur Daerah Istimewa Yogyakarta, sambutan workshop dan exhibition digitalisasi aksara non-Latin. Yogyakarta 20 Mei 2022. Yang kami hormati Menteri Komunikasi dan Informatika Republik Indonesia, Bapak Johnny Geratplit, SE atau yang mewakili, yang saya hormati Ketua dan seluruh sivitas akademik STMM MMTC, yang kami hormati Ketua Dewan Pengurus Pengelola Nama Domain Internet Indonesia, Profesor Yudhogiri Sucahyo PhD, narasumber dan peserta acara yang berbahagia. Pada peringatan Hari Bahasa Ibu Internasional tahun 2009, UNESCO mengingatkan dari 742 bahasa daerah di Indonesia yang 169 terancam punah karena penuturnya kurang dari 500 orang. Dalam update atlas tentang bahasa-bahasa yang terancam punah, UNESCO mengklarifikasi dalam 5 tingkatan dari level tidak aman, terancam, sangat terancam, kritis, hingga benar-benar punah. Kekhawatiran berangsur melenyapnya bahasa dan aksara daerah khususnya Jawa seringkali dibahas dalam berbagai studi, fora seminar, diskusi dan dialog, khususnya dalam serial Kongres Bahasa Jawa. Upaya-upaya ini terdorong niat dedikatif untuk pelestarian dan pengembangan bahasa dan aksara Jawa yang konstruktif demi pembentukan watak dan pekerti bangsa. Bahkan secara konspiratif dalam Pancasila, dalam perspektif persatuan Indonesia. Apabila kita resapi, inilah sisi lain pentingnya mempertahankan eksistensi bahasa dan daerah, aksara dan bahasa daerah. Bahkan menurut Michael Cross, seorang linguis dari Alaska Native Language Center, ketahanan bahasa daerah dihidupi oleh tradisi tulis, pemakaian dalam pendidikan, dan perannya sebagai pendukung kebudayaan daerah. Bapak Ibu yang berbahagia, di era digital ini suatu aksara tidak hadir dalam bentuk, apabila tidak hadir dalam bentuk digital maka dianggap tidak ada. Kalaupun ada dianggap aksara yang tidak hidup karena tidak ada lagi pendukungnya. Persis seperti aksara Mesir kuno, hieroglif. Sebenarnya aksara Nusantara tidak terlalu ketinggalan dalam memasuki era digital karena 25 tahun yang lalu aksara Jawa pun telah terdaftar di Unicode. Aksara Jawa hanya terlambat beberapa bulan dari Thailand, tetapi lebih dulu dari Burma. Bahkan aksara Jawa sudah built-in dalam smartphone. Karena itu kita bisa men-settingnya untuk menulis pesan di berbagai platform, misalnya di WA dan sebagainya. Tapi semua itu belum memiliki platform digital tersendiri yang berbasis aksara Nusantara. Maka di dunia digital, aksara Nusantara masih dianggap seperti hieroglif. Karena itu, inisiatif Sekolah Tinggi Multimedia, MMTC, untuk turut melestarikan aksara non-Latin melalui penyelenggaraan workshop dan eksebisi digitalisasi aksara non-Latin patut didukung dan diapresiasi. Apalagi acara berskala internasional ini juga mengundang para pakar dari negara sahabat, dalam hal ini Malaysia dan India. Layaklah pula apabila saya mengapresiasi pengelola nama domain internet Indonesia, Pandi. Sejauh ini Pandi konsisten dengan Keraton Yogyakarta untuk aksara Jawa, Universitas Udayana untuk aksara Bali, Universitas Pajajaran untuk aksara Sunda, PBNU untuk aksara Arab Pegon yang digunakan di pesantren, dan yang lebih baru dengan Yayasan Aksara Lontarak Nusantara untuk aksara Lontarak. Tentu kerjasama ini harus terus berlanjut demi terhimpunnya aksara-aksara lokal di seantero Indonesia. Dengan misi seperti itulah, saya mengajak Bapak Ibu sekalian untuk menjadikan momentum ini sebagai kesempatan baik untuk berkolaborasi dengan seluruh mitra global yang menggelorakan semangat bahwa dunia ada dan aksaralah yang sejatinya membuat kita berdaya dengan mempelajari masa lampau sebagai bekal mengarungi kehidupan masa kini dan masa depan. Akhir kata, semoga Tuhan Yang Maha Esa berkenan melimpahkan berkah dan rahmat-Nya agar aksara non-Latin tetap hidup, karena benar-benar dihidupkan dengan berbagai upaya dan menjadikannya sebagai living tradition sepanjang peradaban manusia. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yogyakarta 20 Mei 2022 ditandatangani Gubernur Daerah Istimewa Yogyakarta Hamengku Buwono 10.
Thank you, Ibu Eti Kumalawati, as the representative for the Governor of the Special Region of Yogyakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to invite His Excellency, the Minister of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, to deliver his keynote speech. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bapak Joni G. Plate. Dipersilahkan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Greetings of virtue, peace and good health to all of us. Distinguished speakers, academia, and academic community, ladies and gentlemen. Indonesia is a rich nation and prosperous nation, not only in terms of the abundance of natural resources, cultural diversity, but also cultural heritages in the form of dances, songs, poems, and also languages. It is with certainty that Indonesia's cultural diversity is deeply rooted in the nation's identity and is an asset that is worth preserving. Cultural heritage is a foundational aspect of and holds an important role within society. In more specific, within society that is increasingly undergoing digital transformation. The knowledge and appreciation of cultural heritage are instrumental in helping us assess the drastic changes brought by the technological development more wisely. At the same time, massive technological advancement also influences how we interact with our cultural heritages, particularly languages and manuscripts. Writing traditions which began through inscriptions and later through script papers have been replaced by the advent of digital technology and platforms, which are currently thriving within the era of technological disruption. It is therefore undeniable if the engagement with cultural heritages nowadays, and especially among younger generation, is often through digital surrogacy or through the forms of virtual reconstruction and video. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics realizes the potential and important roles of digital technologies in preserving and introducing national cultural heritages to nations' next generations. Our support for cultural digitalization includes improving people's connectivity within Indonesian cultural landscape through an inclusive digital infrastructure deployment, promotion of digital technology adoption, and digital literacy training. Hereby, I appreciate the holding of the international seminar, workshop, and exhibition on Indigenous scripts digitalization titled Reinventing Lost Heritages in Digital Society by School of Multimedia, MMTC Yogyakarta. I do hope that this event, which also invited the global community, will generate meaningful insights and comprehensive perspectives on the issue of cultural digitalization in Indonesia. Let us strengthen our synergy and collaboration into realizing a more connected Indonesia, more digital, more prosperous. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom. Om Santi, Santi, Santi Om. Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you for His Excellency Bapak Joni G. Plate for the keynote speech. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite the Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Cultural Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. In this occasion is represented by the Deputy for Coordination of Mental Revolution, Promotion of Culture and Sports Achievement, Bapak Didi Suhardi, PhD. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Shalom, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Om Swastiastu. Very good morning. First of all, I would like to thanks to this opportunity to join with this international seminar. I would like also to send the gratitude from our minister, Professor Muhajir Effendi, because he has another activity, so he asked me to represent this international seminar. First of all, I would like to Excellency for the Minister of Communication and Information, and also honorable mention for the Governor of Yogyakarta, Ketua Sekolah Tinggi Multimedia, Bapak Nur Iza, and also the head of Pandi, Bapak Yudo, Professor Yudo Giris Cahyo, and all speakers. I think we have international speaker here, Mr. Sarangkul Karni, Mr. Mudu Maran, Dr. Uli Kosok, and Dr. Sudono, and all participants on this international seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to give appreciation for the Sekolah Tinggi Multimedia and join with the Pandi to have this international seminar. We call international seminar Indigenous script reinventing lost heritage in digital society. I think this seminar is very important and very strategic because as mentioned by Dr. Hari and also mentioned by Minister of Communication and Information, and also mentioned by representative from Governor Provincial of Special Yogyakarta, that Indonesia is very big country, very big country. We have hundreds, almost 1,000 local languages, local languages. As I would like to inform you that last year, by partnership between government and Pandi, we just registered 3 local languages, local aksara, local aksara that we just registered in the ICANN, that is Java, and then Bali and Sunda. This is already registered in the ICANN. So this is very, I think, very best effort from us, from Indonesia, and that in this case Pandi and government of Indonesia, and we hope by registering this local languages and local aksara, then continuing with let's say in the industry, we hope in the industry area we can follow up by, let's say, by giving font in the computer, in the computer. So this is very good, I think, to have a local languages in the font of a computer. So in this year, we will, with Pandi, we hope we will continue with our will continue to do the registering the local language with that is maybe as mentioned by representative from Yogyakarta, maybe Arab Pegon, and then also maybe Lampung, and then another languages, another local languages. On behalf of Minister of Coordination, Human Coordination and Culture, yeah, we would like to again give appreciation for the Sekolah Tinggi Multimedia and Pandi to have this international seminar. Thank you very much. Enjoy with the international seminar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Bapak Didi Suhadi, PhD, for the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been going through the first session very well, and I am sure that there might be much new insight that we may receive from the keynote speeches. Before moving forward to the next agenda, for the speakers, participants, guests, and ladies and gentlemen that present here, there is refreshment in this auditorium lounge. And the next agenda, that is panel session, will be started at 9:15. Please enjoy the refreshment. Thank you. Dipersilakan kepada Bapak, Ibu, dan tamu undangan hadirin sekalian untuk bisa menikmati coffee break yang sudah disiapkan oleh panitia di lounge depan dari auditorium ini. Terima kasih. Dan kami tunggu kembali untuk bisa hadir di ruangan ini pada pukul 9:15. Terima kasih. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce that we are going to start the second session of this seminar at 9:15. So for the participants who are still outside, please come inside since the seminar is about to start. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce that the seminar is about to start. Our commitment in punctuality is highly appreciated, so please take your seat now. Kepada Bapak, Ibu undangan serta tamu hadirin sekalian, dimohon untuk bisa segera memasuki ruang seminar karena sesi kedua dari seminar akan segera dimulai. Terima kasih. Bapak, Ibu, serta para tamu undangan, sesi kedua dari seminar akan segera dimulai pada pukul 9:20. Kami harap Bapak, Ibu bisa berkenan untuk segera memasuki ruang seminar. Terima kasih. Bapak, Ibu, serta hadirin tamu undangan, sesi kedua dari seminar ini akan segera kita mulai. Kami mohon perkenan Bapak, Ibu, serta hadirin sekalian untuk bisa memasuki ruang seminar. Terima kasih. Once again, we would like to invite the participants who are still outside to come inside as the seminar is about to start. Please take your seat now. Distinguished guest participants, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the seminar on Indigenous script digitalization, reinventing lost heritages in digital society. Ladies and gentlemen, as our time is short, now we are moving to the second session of this seminar. This session will be facilitated by a moderator. And in this opportunity, we are very glad to have Bapak Muhammad Iqbal Case, MSI, from Universitas Indraprasta PGRI, as the moderator to manage the discussion flow. Ladies and gentlemen, let me invite Bapak Case. Bapak Case, the floor is now yours. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the second session of today's event. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Iqbal Case from Universitas Indraprasta PGRI, and I will be your moderator for today's session. As we venture into the digital society, the people living amidst the reality and the digital realm face many challenges in their daily life. Clashes of culture and identity often faced with a theme of globalization, eroding slowly the traditions in favor of modernity. Hence, we convene here in the international seminar, workshop, and exhibition on Indigenous script digitalization, reinventing the lost heritages in digital society to address this important issue. There will be 5 distinguished speakers invited here to present their expertise and experiences regarding the challenges faced by Indigenous script and the way forward towards the digital society. These distinguished speakers, Mr. Sarang Kulkarni from India, Mr. Muthu Nedumaran from Malaysia, Professor Dr. Uli Kozok from Germany, Dr. Sudono from Indonesia, and Ms. Saloni Singhal from India will be given 15 minutes each to present their materials for today's discussion. For now, let me invite one of the speakers present here, Dr. Sudono. Dr. Sudono, please welcome to the stage. There will be 5 presentations each on 15 minutes remark, and afterwards we will hold a Q&A session and take some questions from the floor to add to the discussion. To the online participants, you can also use the Q&A forum to ask the question directly to the speaker after the speaker presentation finished. Without further ado, let me invite our first speaker, Mr. Sarang Kulkarni. Mr. Sarang Kulkarni is an alumnus of JJ Institute of Applied Art, Mumbai, India. He started White Crow, a design studio for multilingual branding, bespoke type design and calligraphy across Indian scripts. His clients ranging from Apple, Google, Vodafone to Morisawa Inc., and many more. He has won many awards in typeface design, including his latest work, Anek Multiscript, which got him the Certificate of Typographic Excellence from the Type Directors Club in 2022. Currently, Mr. Sarang conducts workshops related to multi-script typography and is the current secretary for Aksharaya Society, a non-profit organization that collects, promotes, explores, and creates awareness about Indian script. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Sarang Kulkarni. Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Sarang. Yes.
Twelve scripts. The scripts are Devanagari, Bangla, Urdu, Gujarati, Gurumukhi, Odia, Mitimak, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Tamil, and Latin. There are some similarities between few of the scripts, but largely they are distinctly different from one another. Each one has its own traditions, nuances, and peculiarities. Different scripts have different level of visual complexities. So the texture and the rhythm of each scripts are different as well. The visual diversity is the most challenging part of designing multi-script type families for India. In country like India, multi-script font families are the apt solution for brand and organization that have a pan-India presence. So our latest release, Anek, is a new addition to this category. Anek means many or multiple. Is a family of multiple weights, widths, and scripts. It is an open source variable font family that supports 10 commonly used scripts in India. The family has 40 weights and style. It is also available as a variable font. This was a large project. A team of 12 people, 12 designers worked on this more than 20 months. So when we work on projects like this, we make sure the equal importance is given to each script. Designers work independently on their respective scripts and collaboratively on the type family as well. The design of this family is based on large and flexible pool of visual features. I'll show you a few of them in detail. So the most important feature that are these circles. They define the weight and the width range, the contrast and transition of curves. And these circles helps in setting vertical metrics and relative heights of different scripts. Joineries and terminals form a very important part of the pool as well. The distinctive trait of this typeface is the feeling of sharpness. It can be seen in a variety of visual features. You can see it strongly in the features like the sharp terminals, angled joineries, pointed structures, and more subtly its sloped headlines and curved knots. In contrast to the sharpness, the dots, nuktas, bindis, pullis, titles are circular or semicircular in appearance. But not all the features are common across scripts. There are many script-specific features as well. If you look at the matras on top, the one in Gujarati reflects the hand-painted street lettering, but the one in Gurumukhi are commonly found in text typefaces. The differences adds the unique texture to these scripts. Telugu and Kannada characters retain the individual quirks. Many characters are identical in both scripts, but they are drawn distinctly different in Anik. In Malayalam, character shapes that changes according to width. Characters that are compact in condensed width shift to more open forms as they go wider. In Tamil as well, several characters take a compact shape as they grow narrower, while some other transforms with changing weights. I'm just showing a few of them here. The challenge in Anek was to maintain consistency within and across scripts, especially the character complexity increases. Different scripts have distinctly different personalities. The languages for which they are used have their own characteristics as well. But in spite of their differences, scripts in Anek can come together as a family. The script work well individually, but they also equally well in multi-script setting. So here is Tamil next to Malayalam, Gujarati next to Latin, and Gurumukhi next to Kannada. The balanced letter structure and even texture of Anek makes it versatile. Prominent visual features like joineries and terminals that are highlighted in heavier weights mellow down in as becomes lighter. This allows Anek to be used across weights and widths and sizes. The strength of Anek is a multi-script variable aspect of it, but I feel it is more important its contribution to the existing typographic palette for each of the script and the scope gives it to the users. Anek opens many doors and possibilities for typography in India. It is a well-informed, refreshing, and contemporary take on our scripts. So the next few projects we designed for scripts which are not in use for official purpose and used within the specific communities. So we worked on two such projects for Google Noto projects, Gunjala Gundi and Masaram Gundi. Gunjala and Masaram Gundi scripts are two scripts used to write Gondi language from central India. These scripts were added to Unicode in 2018 and 19. But these scripts have interesting stories behind them. In 2006, Professor Rao and his team from the University of Hyderabad found some manuscripts in Gunjala village. These manuscripts were written in an unidentified scripts. Later, they found out that the few elders in the village could read the script which was used in writing Gondi. Since the manuscripts were found in Gunjala village, they named the script Gunjala Gondi. In 2014, Mr. Sridhar Murthy designed a font for this script. The font was used for printing primers for school children. We collected available references, materials like handwriting, printed books, and existing typefaces. We worked along with the readers and experts from the community to collect the information and get our design verified. It would have not been possible to design this font without Kopnak Gunju and son Vinayak Rao's help. These are the basic characters of Noto Sans Gunjala Gundi. Consonants and vowel sign combinations and some sample text. Now for Masaram Gondi in 1918, Munshi Mangal Singh Masaram, a Gond from Balaghat district of Madhya Pradesh, designed a script for writing Gondi. Here are some written and printed reference for these scripts. Mr. Mukund Gokhale and Mr. Motiravan Kangali, who worked extensively of designing a typeface, standardized and Unicode proposal for the script. Our font is a continuation of their project. These are the vowel and consonants. The vowel signs from Notosan Mansaram Gondi and some sample text. For scripts that are currently in use, decisions can be taken on the basis of users' feedback, but that opinion does not exist in case of historical script. For historical script, you have to rely on available references and opinions of experts. So one such project that we worked on was Dogra script or Dogra Akhar. This script was used to write Dogri language until 1953. On recommendation of Dogri language community, it was replaced by Devanagari. During the region of Maharaja Ranbir Singh, it was standardized and used for administrative purpose. We traveled to Jammu and Kashmir to find resources and export for this project. Amongst other places, we visited Department of Dogri at Jammu University and Raghunath Temple Library in Jammu and the Oriental Research Library in Srinagar. We found handwritten manuscripts and a few printed books. Here are two versions of Dogra, an older handwritten version that you see on the left and the standardized version on the right. The standardized version was printed using the letterpress font commissioned by Maharaja Ranbir Singh. We designed the typeface based on this research. These are the different vowel signs of Dogra shown along with the letter K. And some text from Noto Serif Dogra. Another historical script that we worked on was Nandinagri. It was used in the southern India between the 11th and 19th century. It was used to write Sanskrit and Kannada language. It was official script for Vijayanagara kingdom. Here are numerous references of Nandinagri, including copper plates, palm leaf manuscripts, stone inscription, coins, and there are few manuscripts on paper as well. The references and handwritten multiple letter variations are seen in different sources. We started this project by collecting extensive chart of letter forms from different sources. Apart from the basic letters that you see here, Nandinagri also has an extensive set of 2 and 3 letter conjuncts. This script was used over a long period of time. As a result, many alternate forms exist. These forms also affect the conjuncts. Here is a text sample book. Looks. In all this project, research and learning were a large part of a design process. Since we were not a reader or user of the script, we relied on information provided by experts and script users and available resources. Our role was to collect, analyze information, and design functional font based on it. The last project that I'll be showing is a bridge between historical and contemporary version of Devanagari. It is a revival of calligraphic style from 15th century manuscript into a digital typeface for current use. This calligraphic style is quite unique and distinctly different from current Devanagari. I'll highlight a few of the features. Individual Shiro Rekha for each letter, triangular terminals at the start of each Shiro Rekha, stylized vertical lines, squarish letter structures, large heavy knots, and short ascenders. Another unique feature is the treatment of below base form. In the current Devanagari, bottom matras are placed below the baseline. But in the manuscript, when there is a letter which has a bottom matra, the base letter is vertically compressed and then matra is drawn below it. So the whole form fits into the base letter height. The manuscript styles also contains some exquisite vertical conjuncts that are not in use today. Like the below base form of these vertical conjuncts are also integrated within the base letter height. The vertical conjuncts are drawn such that they will take lesser space as possible. The compact below base form and the conjuncts allows the calligrapher to keep the minimum distance between two lines. As a result, the manuscript style has a compact texture that is not seen in current Devanagari. So, we decided to create a digital typeface based on the style. During one initial research, we referred the calligraphy from various Kalpasutra manuscripts that were created between 15th century to 18th century. To maintain the consistency in our typeface, we restricted ourselves to a single manuscript which was created in 1503. We extracted and analyzed multiple variations of letter from it. After analyzing, we practiced the calligraphy using the red pen on paper. We calligraphed the manuscript multiple times to understand the structure of letter and stroke movement and spacing. Some letter forms in Devanagari were changed after time. When we started drawing digital, we started with a letter form that had not changed and were similar to manuscripts and the contemporary Devanagari. This was the easier part. The challenge was to draw these letters that were completely different in manuscript as compared to their contemporary versions. Since we were designing the typeface for contemporary use, the letter forms needed to reflect the current version of these characters. Here are the basic set of characters. We incorporated the below base matra feature. The typeface contains two styles of conjuncts, vertical ones based on the manuscript style and horizontal one based on the current prevalent forms. And the sample text is set in Jaini. This is our team of designers and experts who have contributed for this project. This presentation was a brief overview of different types of projects that we worked on. If anyone would like to know about more the process and particularly about the projects, you can please get in touch with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sarang. That is an informative presentation on basic structure and challenges working with historical scripts and how to work with multilingual scripts in case study of Anek. Hopefully this will spark an interesting discussion later on. Moving on, let me invite our second speaker, Mr. Mutu Nedumaran. Mr. Mutu Nedumaran has over 3 decades of experience in designing typefaces for complex scripts. His work on bitmapped fonts and simplified input method for Tamil script changed the entire landscape for Tamil printing in Malaysia and Singapore. His latest work, the Tamil type called Inaimati, are used beautifully on iPhones, iPads, HTC Android devices, and Apple Watches. His Tamil keyboard app for smart devices called Selinam has over 1 million downloads across Androids and iOS. Currently, Mr. Mutu is researching on cursive typefaces by studying handwritten manuscripts across the regions. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Mutu Nedumaran. Mr. Mutu, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm actually very pleased to be able to speak in this forum. I have been to Indonesia several times, spoken in many forums, actually closer to last time of you. But I'm very pleased to talk about Indigenous script digitalization today. Okay, can you share the screen? Okay. There you go. All right. So I'm going to talk about taking Tamil digital, the journey, because I think this is probably relevant to modern day efforts that are underway in some of our heritage scripts to the digital platform. We started 35 years ago, 1985. Should start this started in the late 70s, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And some of the experiences we have had in the challenges and how we work, and then talk about modern day things and what we have contributed some of them to others who are doing similar things. Well, various languages and scripts around the world, national languages. We have people who speak Mandarin, Tamil, we have Germany, in Germany as well, research, and others from the region that are not so commonly used today. I speak Tamil. We have taking Tamil, which will several decades ago. Sarang has given a very good introduction to the Indian scripts. I'm just going to focus on Tamil because that's what we're going to talk about today and some of the challenges we have. So it's a South Indian language and its script, the script and the language is the same. So it's called Tamil. It's also a derived script from Brahmi, like all other, most other Indian scripts and most indigenous scripts of Indonesia and Indochina, like Thai, Myanmar, Khmer, and Lao. So they all have similar traits, consonants, vowels, and vowel signs. But the unique thing about Tamil is it's the smallest set of characters. So we don't have the Anuswara, we don't have the Chandrakala, we don't have all this sign that adds nasal sounds to letters, but we only have consonants, vowels, and the vowel signs. So I'll show you a quick example. This is the vowels of Tamil. There are 12. And the last 4 letters, you see them in gray, they're actually borrowed or rather designed from another script called Grantha, which I'll talk about shortly, which was used to write Sanskrit. You know, all languages in India, you can write Sanskrit with them except for Tamil because we don't have support for conjuncts. We don't have, gabungan, gantungan aspects in Tamil. And we don't have the aspirated consonants, the ka letters. So it's the smallest, but that can also be a problem for non-Tamil speakers because they may not be able to distinguish between ga and ka because we use the same letter. But anyway, we're not going to talk about Tamil. We're going to talk about some of the challenges we had in digitizing this. So these are this is the base consonant ka with all the matras applied, all the vowel signs applied. You'll see there are some similarities across languages, particularly Southeast Asian languages, where the E matra goes on top, the U goes below, the A goes to the left, and the A matra goes to the right and all that. There's only one mark in Tamil, which is the pulli, very similar to the adik in Balinese, where you have the dot above the base consonant. That's actually denoting a dead consonant, and it's visual. It's not hidden in the letter. Now, my early efforts, my early interest in seeing Tamil in a paper was using a typewriter. So I used a Tamil typewriter in the mid 70s when I was still in school. My father is a writer, so I used to type a lot of work for him. This is one example of a typewriter. I didn't have this. Mine was even older. I give you an example. For example, this letter that I showed you just now has the base consonant and the dot. The way we type it is we first type the dot, and then the space will not move. The space bar will not move. It's a dit letter, so it's the dot, and then you type the ka. Only then it will move. Some letters are long like this, right? So we have to type 2 keys to get them. First half one key, the next half another key. So this was very interesting. I got interested and I learned how the typewriter works. And because it's a very small set of letters, all of them fit into that keys. There are no conjuncts, there are not, the only complexity is the dead key and the base consonant. Now it's good for documents, but it's not good for books, magazines, or other printed materials, because when in the year 1983, I was still in school. We used to have these functions for school children in Tamil, English, and Bahasa Malaysia, and we used to print this magazine. And when I went to the printers, they will charge me RM per page in English or Bahasa. Tamil, they will charge me 35 ringgit. And in Tamil, you cannot edit, you cannot correct, you only get what they give. So if they make a mistake, you cannot go and change them. So can you see there's a threefold increase in price? Lima kali ganda, more expensive than Bahasa or English. So that actually made me angry. I said, why is this so difficult? In Chinese, it's okay too, because there are a lot of printing presses who were doing Chinese, but in Tamil, it was so expensive. So I tried to understand why it was difficult, because they were all using metal blocks at the time. This was in the 70s and early 80s. They were using this metal blocks to do the printing. And this is an example of how the Tamil metal blocks look like. Then the top one is Russian, the second one is Tamil, the third one is Sinhala, the fourth is also Sinhala, and then you have other scripts. So this is how it looks like. It's in the reverse. They have to print that. And that is why it is so difficult, because they don't have very many of those types. They only have very little. They have to buy it from India. And once it is composed, you cannot use it for anything else. So I understand why it is expensive. All right, I understood that. But how is it going to solve the problem? Because we still need to print. So I graduated from the university with a degree in computer engineering. I understood computer programming in assembler language, because I was an engineer, not a programmer. So how do I make these machines speak Tamil so I can solve this problem? So I did first investigate this. I don't know how many of you have seen this type of boards. This is the board that actually drives the display on a PC, on a personal computer. So I studied that. I knew that that key is where the characters are stored. I reverse engineered. I studied the bitmaps on how the English was taught. And then I understand there were 80 characters and 25 lines. And then I reverse engineered the chip, programmed the chip, intercept the keyboard to type, in Tamil, in assembler language routines, and then got the text to display. And this is how it works. This is how the character A is composed to display on the screen. I changed that and put Tamil in there on some of the letters that are not used. So I got Ka instead. So it was a long process. I don't have much time to explain it. I will be happy to share if some of you want to know more about this. But it's a very long process. It took me more than a year to understand, and I have to do this after work in my part-time, hacking to the PC, doing all that. Now, this is how I create the side bearings and all that. Now I've done the computer. How do I do the printer? So at those days, there was no laser printers. There were like 7-pin, 8-pin, 18-pin or 24-pin dot matrix printers. Again, I study how the dot matrix printer prints the English letter, and then did the same thing for Tamil to print the dot matrix. And this is my first printed document in Tamil. This was I think it was in 1985, my father's poetry book, and that's his name there. And this was done completely printed on dot matrix printers with the solution that I worked on. Then later, laser printers became more affordable, and I created fonts for laser, PCL, bitmap fonts, and all that is a bigger story. Then came all these magazines. But the more important thing is, these were the tools that I used. It's a paper, a squared paper I used to draw the bitmaps, some command prompt to write the assembly routines, and my assembler language program to make all these things work together. Right? Squared paper, text editor, assembly language. And this was my most sophisticated. I don't know how many of you have seen this. You used to see this in Windows 3.0 or 3.1. It's Paintbrush, where you draw your bitmaps. And then I write programs to convert the bitmaps to digital files. That was the most sophisticated tool. And all this was done at the time when there was no internet, there was no Google, and there was no mobile phones. I only had a PC that was running MS-DOS, and later it was running Windows 2 or Windows 3. How did I do this? What was my driving factor to get this thing done? You know, it was not a business. There was money in doing this. It was purely out of passion. And that's what I think we are all gathered here. We are all gathered here because we are passionate about bringing all our heritage, our culture, our rich, the governor talked about it, the earlier speakers spoke about the rich heritage Indonesia has. And we are all driven by passion. And that can take us great lengths. And because of those efforts, 25 years later, I created all this for iOS and macOS devices. And some HTC Android devices. Now, if you buy the Kindle, Tamil and Malayalam fonts were mine. And then, you know, in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been doing more scripts. So on iOS, macOS, you will see all of my fonts in all of the languages that, you know, Sarang also spoke about this now. It's a lot of fun working in all these languages and making them work together. Now, today, things are different. You don't have to write assembler language codes. You don't have to use pen and paper to do bitmaps. Most languages have an encoding. They're all encoded in Unicode. We heard speakers earlier mention about Javanese, Balinese, and other languages and scripts of Indonesia getting encoded and becoming available even in international domain names. More are getting encoded from time to time. There are a lot of researchers who are adding scripts to the Unicode standard. Platform support is available. In fact, all of the vendors have now supported Unicode in their base platform as the standard, instead of only doing English and then adding other languages as and when the market is demanding. Today, there is no longer the case. Every platform will be able to display any of the text that is encoded in Unicode. Input tools are available or can be made available. I've written a keyboard app called Sangam Keyboards that can type any of the Indian and Indo-Chinese languages. Applications are also supporting Unicode. Now, I'll give you one example. There's this a script called Grantha, which is no longer in use. It was used in the 6th century in South India. Because Tamil can't be used to write Sanskrit, they created another script called Grantha, which was used to write only Sanskrit. And this is how the script looks like. You see that it looks very close. I created this font, and it's now available on iOS and macOS. So if you send an iMessage, WhatsApp, or whatever on mobile phones, you can actually exchange text in this script. Though it's no longer in use, you can still use this for research. People want to use this for novelty, exchange greetings, they can still use this script. So likewise, even indigenous scripts that are no longer in use are still revivable using this technology, which is why the governor said in the opening speech that for the language to survive, it has to move to digital. Now, I'm also a typeface designer. So creating fonts for complex scripts is a lot better today than it was, say, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the font tools didn't understand shaping. We have to do that outside of that. It's very complex, but it's getting a lot better today. It's getting a lot easier to do complex scripts. And it's so much easier to create fonts for non-Latin today than it was 20 years ago. So in that space, I made a contribution for font makers in this region, including India, Indochina, Indonesia, and I have lots of good friends who provided feedback. And it's a font tool called Hibiscus. You can download this for free from the Mac App Store. And I'm very pleased to say it's also open source. So you can actually recompile it if you want, go and look at how it works. It supports all of the non-Latin complex scripts in the region. I'll give you a few examples of screenshots. Now, here is an example of a Javanese font. This is Javanese. And on the right panel, you can see that I've provided groups where you can actually select the bases, look at all the possible conjuncts, two-part conjuncts, other bases if you want to add any specific base letters that you want to test. And then how do subconsonant forms exist? How do vowel signs sit on this type, on all of these base letters, whether it's base letter or conjunct, or how do signs sit on vowels? If it is not a legal character, how does the dotted circle be? All these combinations are possible now to test from a single app. Now, previously, because I worked on all these scripts, and it's very difficult to find typeface designers to understand all the scripts. So every typeface designer has to be from a different language, and it's difficult to find good typeface designers in each specific language. So some of us do multiple languages. I do all of these languages. And sometimes I don't understand how these matras combine, how this, how do two bases become a conjunct when there is an adik-adik in between, for example, or virama in between. So all these possible combinations are handled by this tool for the typeface designer. You just have to select the combinations and see how your fonts render. Here's an example, a very famous example of Balinese text using string viewer. It's also a tool in High Business Biscuit to see how the signs sit and connect to the base letters. And each glyph is represented in a different color, so you can see how these combinations actually work. You don't have to be an engineer to do engineering work anymore. You can actually see how those things fit in. So that's my contribution. It's free, it's open source. I hope a lot of people will download, use, and build this beautiful typefaces for all the beautiful scripts of Indonesia. So all we need to do today is we promote its usage, create beautiful posters, banners, social media exchanges, get these scripts out there, tell people that you can actually exchange greetings in these languages and enjoy the beauty of this tradition, our scripts in the past. So with that, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I hope this was useful for you to continue the excellent work that you're doing in getting the indigenous scripts back to the digital age. Thank you very much.
Pak Kees, before starting my presentations, I would like to say Happy National Awakening Days for Indonesia. It is very interesting to talk about the indigenous scripts, just like what mentioned by Mr. Mutu, Mr. Mutu. I would like to actually to focus on a little bit different perspective. If those two speakers talk about the type of font and characters in the script, many scripts, but I would like to focus on, okay, digitalizing is very important, and doing here in Pandi, we support it for that. But I worried about a different side, how to socialize, how to familiarize people.
Yes. Within Pandi, it's all right too, and
Yeah.
and it's easier to promote.
Easier, yes, to
the
promote.
indigenous
Yes, to
script,
promote.
but
Just
for the larger society and for the
Yeah.
larger audience, it's harder to promote. So
Yeah.
that is what you want to highlight on this discussion.
Yes,
Mr.
that's my
Sutopo.
presentation. But I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sudana. I work at this institution since 1995, I think. Yeah. Let me start. Okay. Okay, this is the title of my presentation. I move on the second. I would like to talk about, I cannot wait too much. Okay, this is the issue what I would like to talk, sort of multimedia, School of Multimedia, and then indigenous script in Indonesia, reintroducing indigenous script and forms of indigenous scripts, just for example. Because I know some participants coming from overseas, so I would like to mention that we are now at School of Multimedia, located at the middle of Java, surrounded by some tourism objects, just like Borobudur temples and the northwest part of the city, and also this is a Buddhist temples, and also the city on the east side of the city we can find the Prambanan temples from Hindus, and also north part of the city we can see the big mountains and still active right now, and also Jogja is well known as a cultural city, also a student city, because a lot of university and school. Okay, and this is skip. This our programs. We have only 2 degrees, diploma 4 and bachelor, and also 3 department. I mentioned this study program because through these study programs, I think we can work together with Pandi. How then we support Pandi in collaboration through kind of thesis, by using a thesis, and a student may produce in designing characters, for example. So I think School of Multimedia is good enough in establishing coordination with Pandi. This is short courses we had already held, international training also. I skipped this. Okay. The facts, Indonesia right now, almost 300 million, so almost populations, and 1,300 ethnic groups, or 1,300, and consists of 700 local languages. I think more than 700 languages, even though not every languages has their own characters or scripts, but at least we have 30 indigenous scripts. So it's quite. This is our homework, I think. Homework to how then to digitalize, because each script they have their own characters, their own style or types or whatever. But I particularly appreciate the Pandi that right now already registers to Unicode 7 scripts, right? And now I think, please correct me if I say wrong numbers, but I think we have now three scripts already fulfill the Indonesian national standard. This is very, very nice. Well, but just like what I mentioned before, we have already 7 registers and Unicode, and also 3, but we have to consider about how people, how government, then familiarize people using these scripts. Because this, from my point of view, not everyone can read, particularly Japanese scripts. Even for younger people, cannot read the Japanese scripts, and we had learned it since the primary school, secondary, high school, or even in university. But still, when they finish their study and they forget to how to use this script. So I agree with what already mentioned by Mr. Mutu, that promoting and the use of these scripts, I think it's very important. We Pandi also technically how to digitalize scripts. And other side, government people should familiarize or socialize this kind of scripts. I think government also already did it, already pay attention very much to this to these issues, I think. Let's say from formal educations or local contents, right? There is of subjects regarding to the Bahasa Jawa or Bahasa Sunda. It depends on the area. But yes, but maybe still need something to do more about that. And also government, I mentioned last few days ago, I make a pictures from the signboard in the streets or in front of the office. Later on, I would like to show it. And we can find a name, but I have a note from that one. Let's show you. Just like this, for example, it's very nice, it's very good from Kementerian Keraton, and then there is scripts, Japanese scripts, but also this one, Malioboro, and look a little bit like a smaller. The characters are smaller than the word Jalan Malioboro, but actually it's the same size. Font is looks actually the same size, because in Japanese scripts there are some combinations or accessories below of the main of the characters, so it looks small, but actually it's big one. But I think something like this. So I think this is an example from Sasana Among Roko, for example. That's good. Already written in Japanese language too. But this is what one of the I want to mention, that maybe it's much better if the Japanese characters read it in the same font size, because I wonder semiotically, if we analyze it with semiotic, for example, and psychologically, Japanese characters in the second level, something like this, the second level. Inferiors, yeah, right. That's what I mean. So I prefer to and the same font size, because even maybe in the Latin characters is and below, and Japanese characters and up, the above of that characters. I would like to show an example. This is Mangkuyudan. Actually, same font is the same, I think, but still look smaller than Latin characters. Just like this one, I took some examples. Last few days ago, I walked around the city and take pictures with this. A museum, Sono Budoyo. Also, this is the same actually, but I suppose for the local government to put it the Japanese characters and above of the Latin's characters. This is also I got some pictures, many pictures, but this is also this is what I mean, Pak Case. I took one example from, I think, from Singapore, right? And all characters is the same. Singapore cable car, and then also I think Chinese, and also Malayu and Japanese, right?
So they didn't use the same size point, but
Yep.
they use the same legibility across the lines.
Yeah. Even this one, some know Japanese characters, and also I have a signboard from West of Java. Looks small, and this is what I mean, Pak Case. At the above of the Latin language, Latin words, and looks bigger. So I hope that psychologically people focus, or more, and that's interesting to write or to use the Japanese language. Something like this too. Next. This is just only an example of what a language we have, Aksara Batak, Aksara Bugis, and so on. Once again, Pak Kis, that I suggest not only the government, but us, by promoting the digitalizations of all characters, but how people then use that word. Maybe it's not only a signboard on the streets, but also in the, let's say, a kind of package. When we buy like noodles, for example, a plastic, but why we don't use that characters, or Japanese characters, or Sundanese characters? So everything, whatever, then just like written in indigenous script or local scripts. I imagine this is something that, when we meet, let's say, so sorry to say, it's like Japanese, for example, when he write the laptop, just always by using Japanese characters, right? Like katakana or kanji or whatever, also in Chinese also. Sometimes are just a kind of dreams that all people use our characters. But the problem is promotion, I think. Promotion, how then all people like to write or to read in the local script. Yep, thank you, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sudono. So the main point that you are trying to raise is how to face the Indonesian standards, and especially the governmental policies and the larger audience, to urge the promotion of the indigenous scripts, right?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe it could be a part of the nation branding or the city branding, or
Yep.
maybe the product branding,
Yep.
to familiarize the larger
Yep.
audience
Yep.
to our own indigenous scripts.
Yes.
That
Then
is-
all people's really familiar with that scripts.
okay, yeah, that needs a cooperation with a large body,
Right.
like governmental
Yeah.
institution.
Yeah.
And this is actually the work for us Indonesian
Yeah.
people, especially youth,
Yeah.
the younger audience.
Yes.
Maybe we can start to brand some products using the indigenous
Yeah.
scripts.
I wonder if only registers and then or digitalized, okay, but no one use it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So-
what I mean.
So Pandi already tried to digitalize many scripts, but no
Yeah.
one using it. No one
Yeah,
is using
yeah,
it, right?
yes, yes. So that's we support Pandi very much. Yeah, to socialize to all people.
Okay, this is a very a slap to us Indonesian to know our indigenous script better, actually. So maybe this also ties to what later Professor Uli may present to his materials. So I would like to invite our fourth speaker, Professor Dr. Uli Kozok. Professor Dr. Uli Kozok got his PhD on Batak languages and literature from Department of Austronesian Languages and Cultures, University of Hamburg, Germany, with his research on the Batak marriage and love laments found in their oral and written traditions. He served in the International Council for Malay Language in 2005 as the representative for North America and in Masyarakat Pernaskahan Nusantara in Indonesia in 1998. Currently serves as the professor in the Department of Hawaiian and Indo-Pacific Languages and Literatures, University of Hawaii at Manoa, USA. Professor Dr. Uli Kozok, fields of study, covers, among others, the paleography of islands Southeast Asia, such as the Philippines and Indonesia, philology and oral literature of Sumatra, and modern Indonesian culture and society. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Uli Kozok. Professor Uli, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. And welcome everyone. I have to apologize. I'm probably a little bit late. Oh, by the way, before I start, I'm so that the presentation should be in Indonesian, so I prepared it in Indonesian. So what is the preferred language now?
Pakai bahasa Indonesia atau Okay, I think it's English because I guess the audience consists of many people from across the world. So it's okay if your presentation is in Indonesian because many of us could read Indonesian, but maybe you can present in English.
I can, yes, I can just, translate it on the fly.
Okay.
No problem at all. And yeah, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit my knowledge about the Batak script. So I have prepared a presentation which consists, by the way, can you already see my screen, the share screen?
Yes, Professor. We already see your screen materials.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. So I have prepared 25 slides, and since I only have 25 minutes, is that correct?
You will have around 15 to 20 minutes actually to present your materials.
Okay. So I have to, okay. I will try my best to make it to go as fast through the slides as possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
So just like any of the other Indonesian scripts, the pre-Islamic scripts, the Batak script also is ultimately derived from an Indian script and probably brought by Indonesian merchants from India to the archipelago. We don't know exactly when that happened, but probably around the 5th century, 6th century, roughly. So the oldest inscriptions are in post-Brahmi script in Indonesia, but later on that script developed into what is called the Old Javanese, Old Sumatran script, or also called the Palaba script, or post-Palaba script, Kawi script. There are lots of names for the same script. So the Batak script follows the same principle as all other Indian scripts do. It consists of an aksara, the sandangan are the vowel signs, and the pasangan are subscript consonants. Now, in the Batak script follows the same principle. However, the Batak script has avoided the use of all pasangan. And the same tendency we can also observe in the Sundanese script, for instance, because there a certain number of inscriptions that don't use any pasangan. So if we look at the structure of the script is exactly the same. All consonantic characters end with an A, and they are called, they're not called aksara in the Batak script. They are called surat in the Batak script. And the naming surat is also very interesting because it's not only the Batak script that is called surat, but it also is the script of Central and of Southern Sumatra, the script of Sulawesi, the scripts of the Philippines. These scripts are all called surat. So I refer to these scripts as the surat scripts because we can assume that they all have the same ancestor. As you can see, the position of the diacritics, the vowel diacritics here, is essentially the same, very similar in Batak as it is in Brahmi. Let's have a look, for instance, at E. you see that the position of the diacritic is exactly the same. Look at O. You see that O is the only character where the diacritic consists of two separate strokes. And in Batak, we have also exactly the same. Then these characters are, you can add to those consonants the vowels as I just showed, but you can also add a final ang, and that sound is called in Sanskrit the Anuswara. The position of the Anuswara is also very similar to the position of the sign in the Batak script. The only difference is that the Anuswara can stand for M, or N. So it's an added nasal. In the Batak script, and in fact in all other Southeast Asian scripts, it is only and never another nasal. And then we have the Visarga, which is the Sanskrit name, that adds a slightly aspirated H, so Ka becomes Ka. And finally, we have the Virama, which is the killer sign, also known as Tanda Bunuh in several Indonesian scripts, Paten in Javanese, and so on. So the Surat scripts and the scripts of Jawa and Bali, Jawa, Sunda and Bali, I should say, are slightly different. As I mentioned before, the scripts of Bali, Sunda, and Jawa, those are the ones that I marked in red. They all have pasangan. They have long vowels. They have additional letters for foreign languages. Well, actually, foreign languages, that's mainly Sanskrit, of course. And these, and they are relatively complex. So it takes about 1 week to learn them. So if you have a smart student, then that student should be able to read and write the script fluently in about 1 week. So it takes some time. Now, the Surat scripts, on the other side, they are much more simple. They don't have any pasangan. They don't have any long vowels. They don't have any additional letters for foreign characters. They're very easy to learn. It only takes about 1 day. They all are called Surat, and they add additional consonants which are pre-nasalized. And that is very smart because the Indonesian language consists, and not only the Indonesian language, but also almost all of the Indonesian local languages, they don't have any consonant clusters. If there is a consonant cluster, then the consonant cluster usually is a pre-nasalized consonant, a pre-nasalized stop, for instance, like we have mba, nka, nda, ncha, and so on. And a lot of these local scripts, they have additional characters to reflect these frequently used pre-nasalized consonants. So the pasangan here, they are used for consonant clusters, such as Sri, where we have SR, SR. These consonant clusters are not existent in any of the Sumatran languages, and as far as I know, also not in Sulawesi and not in the Philippines. And therefore, there was absolutely no need to have pasangan, and they were eliminated. Again, a very smart move. So we have this development of the island Southeast Asian scripts from the Pallava script in the 17th century, then Aksara Kawi developed from the starting in the 7th century and lasting up to the 16th century. And then the Kawi alphabet diverged into different local alphabets, the Java, Bali, and Sundani script, and then the Surat scripts of the Philippines, Sumatra, and Sulawesi. So this is an example of the Pallava script. We only have a few remaining inscriptions in Indonesia. So the Pallava dynasty was very influential, and it also affected the Batak language, and especially the Batak Marga. So as you probably know, the Batak society consists of clans, patrilineal clans called Marga. And some of these Margas are called Kling, Palawi, Miliala, Pandya, Chola, and Brahmana. And of course, the Kaling refers to Kalinga in South India. Then we have Palawi, which relates to Pallava. Then we have Chola, which relates to the kingdom of Chola. We have Pandya, which relates to the kingdom of Pandya, and so on. So as you can see, there have been quite a few influences, and all these marga, these are sub-margas of the Sembiring marga, and Sembiring literally translates as the black one or the black ones. So referring to the skin color of the South Indians, which is notably darker than the color of the skin color of the Batak people. Now, this script later developed into the Kawi script. The Kawi script was used to write Sanskrit, but also to write Malay, to write Javanese, and other languages. Okay, now what is also interesting is that essentially all Indian languages, they have the Indian derived languages, they have the same alphabet starting with Ka, Ga, Nga, and then followed by Ta, Da, Na, and so on. And that changed not everywhere. Like in Sulawesi, we still have the Ka, Ga, Nga, Ta, Da, Na sequence. We also have that in South Sumatra, but we don't have it among the Batak script, and also we don't have it among the Balinese and the Javanese script. So the Javanese script has a completely new sequence, which is Hanacharaka, and which means that there have been two envoys, and then, you know, it goes on. And we have exactly the same in the Batak script, where the script was, or the alphabet was reorganized in such a way that it becomes a whole story, just like it happened in Javanese. And then it translates as, what is that young man who was leading an elephant? So something like, that's a very rough translation of the sequence of the alphabet. Then, of course, the question arises, when did that actually happen? When did the Kawi script or the Batak script separated from the Kawi script. And I have studied the Batak script very carefully, and I have come to the conclusion that it is very, with a very high, that there is a very high probability that the Batak script was directly derived from the Kawi script. And that happened definitely before the 16th century. Probably as early as the 10th or 11th century. So now a little bit about the digitalization of Batak script. So I started this in 1989 when I purchased my first computer. And at that time, almost everyone had printers that were of the Epson brand. And I, of course, had one too, very reliable printers. And since everybody had them, what I did in order to create a Batak script, I didn't create a font really, but I created a printer driver which had the Batak script. So that I used for quite a while. And then, of course, the computer fonts developed, and they brought us the true type fonts. And then I started to use the program Fontographer. And between 1994 and 1996, I developed fonts for all of the Batak scripts. Now, that was, of course, not enough, because a little bit later, there was that big move from Unicode to create Unicode fonts for all Indonesian local scripts. And so I was asked to work together with Michael Everson. And together with Michael, we, at that time, I lived in Singapore. So Michael stayed with me for maybe a week or two. And we worked intensively on the Batak script. And so after about 2 weeks, we had almost completed our work. And the first Unicode font for the Batak script was developed. Now, the Batak script consists of various local variants. So we have so the Batak language, there are 6 Batak languages, but Alas technically is one of the Batak languages, but Alas is culturally not Batak. So, and Alas also does not have a script. So we are only concerned with the script of the 5 Batak regional languages, which are Karo, Pakpak, Simalungun, Toba, and Mandailing, also sometimes called Angkola Mandailing. So these 5 scripts, they all have slightly different variants, as you can see here. So, like for instance, in the Karo script, it's the only language which has a ch sound, whereas Mandailing is the only language that has a ny sound. Now, Toba and Simalungun are a little bit odd because they also use nya, but they don't have the ny sound, but they include the letters in their alphabet. So which shows us that the alphabet must have developed from Mandailing, because otherwise Toba and Simalungun would not have included a nya if they, because there's no use for it. Okay, so Karo is the only Batak language that developed pre-nasalized characters, but only for da and ba, not for ka and cha, or ta, for instance. As you can see, the the characters are essentially the same, but sometimes we have regional variants. Like for instance, Karo only uses one kind of ta. Simalungun uses a completely different one. Tob uses both, and so on. So now all diacritics, and this is also the case in most, not all, other islands Southeast Asia, diacritics have individual names. Now, this is a completely new development that is very different from India, because in India, you only have Anusvara and Visarga, and of course, the Virama. Those are the only three signs, diacritics, that have a proper name. Now, in the Batak script, every vocalic diacritic has a name. And using those names, we can establish like a family tree. So for instance, the E is called in Batak the Taling, in Lampung, Keteliling, in Rejang, Katiling, in Mandailing, Talinga, in Simalungun, Hatalingan, and then that there is a tendency among Toba Batak to make sense of all those names. So Hatalingan does not mean anything in Toba Batak. So they changed it a little bit and it became Hatadingan. And Hatadingan means be left behind. And as you can see, it's like this one here is to the very left. So it's kind of left behind. So they made sense of, of this word and created a new one. And then this year entered Pakpak and it became Ketadingin, and it entered Karo from Simalungun and it became Ketelengan. Ketelengan. No, it's actually Ketelengan. Okay, so we have that. We can do the same with the nga. We can do it for all of the characters, for all of the diacritics, and then we get a very clear picture. And the picture is that the Batak script must have entered the Batak language from the south, and then developed further to the north. First into the border region between Simalungun and Toba, and then to Simalungun, from Toba to Pakpak, and Karo got influences from both sides, from the west and from the east. And what is very interesting, there is some a very interesting phenomenon, and that is that the Karo script shares a lot of resemblance with the Sundanese script. And that still is puzzling me, and I'm trying to make sense out of it. And so this is ongoing research, and hopefully I will be able to figure that out in the past. So in order to conclude my presentation, because I think time is already over. So we have three different groups, or four different groups actually, of island Southeast Asian scripts. We have the Sumatran scripts. They all seem to be relatively closely related, especially the two southern ones, Kerinci and the Ulu script. They are very closely related. Then we have the Batak script, which looks quite different, but if you closely compare the letters, you will still see that there is a certain amount of similarity. Now that you have the script of Sulawesi, and the script of Sulawesi is totally different. So what must have happened there is that at one stage, the script must have been redeveloped from scratch, because it does not show any resemblance to the Sumatran script or to any of the other Surat scripts. But it's also called Surat. It lacks the Pasangan. It has the Sanskritic alphabetical order, and so on. So from the system of the Sulawesi script clearly shows that it is related to the other scripts, but how, that's a little bit of a mystery. The Sulawesi script is also incomplete. Incomplete as it is unable to render final consonants. That is not a big problem because the Sulawesi script has very few final consonants, but it becomes more where and they cannot be reflected because they cannot write final consonants. So some scholars have argued that because of that reason, the Philippine script must have been derived from the Sulawesi script. However, paleographically, there is absolutely no way to prove that, because, as I said, at one stage, the Sulawesi script was completely reorganized. And then, of course, we have the scripts of the island of Java, Java and Sunda, and we have the Balinese script. And as I have shown, these are not called Surat scripts, so they are quite different, and but yet still very closely related to all the other island Southeast Asian scripts. So I think time is over. Thank you very much. And I return the microphone to the moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Dr. Uli Kozok, for the extensive research on Batak script and how to utilize limited technology to digitalize it. So maybe when we are talking about digitalization using technology, it ties relatedly into our fifth invited speaker, which is Miss Saloni Singhal. And I would like to invite Miss Saloni Singhal to share her experiences. Please welcome Ms. Haloni Singhal to the stage. Okay, please allow me to introduce herself first. As a project manager for Intel Digital Readiness for Asia Pacific and Japan area, Ms. Saloni Singhal has managed various projects on tech-enabled, innovation-based ecosystem, supporting various initiatives driven by central and state government in India. With more than 15 years of experience in corporate and social development sector, she believes in embracing the possibilities for transitioning from conventional forms to the use of emerging technologies for holistic development. Currently, Ms. Saloni passion on driving large-scale public-private partnership to build an AI-ready generation has her focused on making technology fully inclusive and empower youth with AI skills for current and future jobs. So this is a very, very interesting take because we are currently facing a digitalized society. So maybe you can start with sharing what kind of AI-ready generation that you are trying to build right now, specifically in the Asia-Pacific region, Ms. Saloni. Please, Ms. Saloni, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that nice introduction. And it's good to hear from somebody else because we've been doing work, so we don't realize what all is happening. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me to this forum. It's a pleasure and it's an honor being here. I would like to say my special thanks to the Coordinating Minister of Human Development and Culture, Pa Muhajir Effendi, Minister of Cominfo, Pa Johnny Plate, Your Highness Sultan and the Governor of Special Region of Yogyakarta, Pa Hari Budiarto, thank you so much for having me here. It's because of his efforts and his invitation that I could be here with all of you. Thank you so much. Pa Yudo Giri, and I would like to also thank Pa Sudhanu. Please, thank you so much for being here. So I think it's still good morning. Is it still good morning? Yeah, it is. So as we say here, I believe, and my friend here, Janyo, has been telling me that I think Sugeng Injing makes more sense. So Sugeng Injing, everyone. Yeah, yeah, great. I'm so happy to be here in Yogyakarta. I've been hearing about, and it's great to be here. I do hope that I get more time to explore this beautiful place. But work definitely comes first because work is what takes us places. So, and thank you so much for setting the context right. And I was listening to the the presentation which was being made. One is, of course, that when you see the name of the country that you come from, it kind of elates you even more. So thank you for that. I am part of a larger group at Intel which works for digital readiness. And we've been working in the entire world. We have presence of this program. I mean, Intel is available in more places, but we have presence of this program in almost 25 plus countries as of now. And since I'm based out of India, Asia Pacific and Japan is where I am, working with very closely with the governments, the provincial governments, the state governments, and the central governments. In Indonesia, we've been working since 2020, and we launched one of our programs here with kind support and kind invitation from Pa Nadeem from Ministry of Education. We've been very honored to work with the ministry, and the reason why I'm here is because we've been again very honored to work with the Ministry of Communication, and thankful to Pa Hari and Pa Hari for supporting us and for letting us work. So digital readiness is something which all of us are already part of. Each one of us. I mean, if I can ask, how many of you are not using a phone? Is there anyone here? Anyone here who's not using a phone? Not possible, right? Not possible at all. So the technology is already part of our life, right? What is more important is how ready are we to make use of it and make use of it in the right manner. So if you give a computer to somebody who doesn't understand how to use it, then it's useless. But that does not mean that the computer cannot help. What is important is that we should be able to skill the people so that they can make use of it to do wonderful things. So technology, whether we're talking about a phone or we're talking about computer, or there are so many different things which are coming now, it's just a technology and it's just a tool. I could be using it to make a presentation. You could be making use of it to play games. And the professor who was talking before me, he's actually making use of it to get the ancient scripts back, to probably restore them, to probably understand them, which is what is going to help us in understanding the history. And a lot of solutions, a lot of answers usually come from there. So it's just a tool that all of us are already, using it. So as part of my work profile, that's what I work with. It is important not only for you and me to understand it, but it's even more important for the next generation, for the students who are still in the school, for the people who are ready to join the jobs. And as a country, it is very important that we make them ready for the future, which is largely governed by the technology. All of us don't have to become experts in programming. All of us don't have to become experts at coding, not required. But what is required is that you should be able to know how, if somebody else is doing the recording or how somebody else is doing the coding, how it can help you. So all the programs that we work with or whatever we try to do, the whole idea is let's give the skills. Let's skill the people because you would understand your problems, your challenges much more than I would. So if I can tell you how to use technology, you can actually create a solution for yourself. And that's exactly what we are trying to do everywhere with the different ministries, with the different governments. There's a program that we're running with Ministry of Cominfo also, which is how can you actually imbibe technology and make use of it to create a solution for anything that you see around. So again, referring to the presentation that was happening, I think he mentioned that in I think some 1980s he bought a computer and he had a printer at that point of time. But that's not important. What is important is that he knew that he wanted to solve a problem, which was something to do with understanding the script, and he knew that the only tool that would help him do is probably a printer or a computer or a phone for that matter. So when we talk about the topic is that how do you digitalize it? I think the experts here would know what needs to be digitalized, right? That's the most important thing. Technology is something all of us, I'm sure with a little bit of time we can figure out. That's not a problem. But what is important is the idea. What is important is how you will make use of it. And I think that's where we talk about awareness. Awareness about knowing what needs to be done. And then you find the technology. So, we've been running different programs here and we have these young students from schools. I'm talking about K-12. And I'm amazed at the ideas that they have. Amazed. Because that's what starts everything. So it's the awareness that will tell you what needs to be done and how you can make use of whatever is required. It may be a technology I'm talking today. Tomorrow you may say we don't need technology. Maybe we need to work on something else. So be it. But the most important piece is, can we think, can we decide, and then take a call on how we make use of the tools that are available. So to me, digital readiness, it actually starts from the awareness. If you know what needs to be done, and if you have the will to get it done, you will find your ways and means because that is available. So, I think it's very interesting because I was just discussing that, history is what makes the future. Yes. It all starts there. And if there is a way that we can restore the languages that we may have forgotten or we haven't even understood so far, right? I was just trying to see, he was mentioning about, I think he mentioned a word called, and please pardon my pronunciation, but he talked about Hatalingan and Hatatingan right now. He was talking about that. Yes. Something to do with leaving, I think it was a symbol which says south. So I was just trying to, we have a state in India which is called Telangana. Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out, now I don't know if there is a connection, but I know that I want to know if there is a connection. And so I actually Googled it right now that, is there. So technology comes there, but most important is I want to know something. I want to do something. And then there are things and ways where, we can make use of. So I think that's what is more important.
Okay, that is a very interesting intake on the use of technology as a tool. But when we are talking about technology as a tool, we often highlight it as a part of the solution. But when we are facing the digital society, many, just like what you are saying about awareness, maybe that is what we have to touch upon. But when we are talking about technology, we also have to be reminded that there were many challenges came with the technology, especially to the youth generation, maybe regarding identity clashes in the cyberspace, when there are cultures clashing. So is there any experience that you are facing when you are developing an AI-based generation where the identity between students, the different identities, specifically because Asia Pacific is very large region, Japan versus India versus America versus the Western world, where there are many clashes there. So is there any experience and how to overcome that kind of identity and cultural clashes in the AI-based learning system?
Absolutely. So I think what you're referring to is the ethics, and you're
The
referring to the
ethics, yes,
biases
yes.
which can come in into the technology. So it is something which happens. There is no way we can avoid it, for sure. But what we can do is, as the makers of technologies, as the creators of technology, we can make sure that the biases are as less as possible. So what usually happens is that, when you're creating something which is governed by artificial intelligence, let's say in this case, so typically there would be an algorithm for it, right? That's how it works. Now, the biases will come in if the person who's creating the algorithms has the biases, right? The computer, the machine does not have any biases. It is me who will give the biases, right? So if I am thinking that, let's say you're not good, okay? And you're not good because maybe you're wearing specs, right? That's my perspective, my perception. So when I'm creating an algorithm, I'll say, oh, anybody who's wearing specs is considered not good, right? That's me,
Yes,
right?
yes,
That's
yes,
me,
yes.
that's not the system, right? So that's how the biases come in, right? And there are a lot which is happening right now on the cybersecurity piece. There's a lot which is happening online. It all comes from the people who are creating it. Now, one is to ensure that the system does not take everything. But the more important part is to make sure that the person who's creating it is very careful in not putting his or her biases in the algorithm. And from there, you move one step backward. So we come back to awareness again. So the people who are actually going to create something need to be made aware that when you are creating something, make sure that your personal interest, your personal, let's say, liking or disliking should not come into it. And that's the reason when we do our courses with students, we actually have a module which talks about the biases, which talks about ethics, which talks about the pitfalls. Because they are the ones who are going to create something like, a very simple thing which happens, and everybody talks about it, is that you have the assistants, like, you have Siri, right?
Yes.
And you have Alexa. I have a problem with that. I have a problem. Why only women? Why should they be a Siri should be a woman? Right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Why? Because traditionally, the assistants have been women,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Now that's not true anymore, right? But that's a bias that's been built into it. Now, if I create something, I may want to say, no, it's not a woman. Maybe, I have a male colleague. So which is perfectly fine. All of us are equal in the work that we do. So that's a bias, right? And what is very important for all of us is who are working with, with the next generation, is that make them aware that what you're thinking, is what is going to go into the system, and what goes into the system is what is going to go to the, to the masses, right? Now, what happens is that we start thinking that it's the machine which is doing the biases, right? Because that's not possible. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here, you guys watch sci-fi movies, right?
Yes,
and you
yes,
see
yes.
how that works over there, that, there's a system which is taking over the world and stuff like that.
Yes, many
you talk-
people blamed AI, many
They
people
may-
blamed algorithms.
Exactly. We talk about how general AI will become overpowerful and stuff.
Yes.
But at the end of it, there's somebody sitting behind it who's actually designed it. And so our job together, collectively, as parents, as guardians, as the people who work in this field, as professors, as academics, as government, it is our job to make sure that the people, especially the students, because they are the ones who will easy to pick up, right? You and me will take time. We've already been built. We are not very open to most of the things, but they are, So
they are very moldable.
Yes, Exactly. They're very influenceable, right? It's very easy for them. So we have to make sure that they see the right things in the right light. And if they do it, then the chances of having those biases, and the chances of having those identity clashes that we were talking about will go down. It'll become minimal. It'll become something which is manageable. So yeah, I mean, it's important to talk about it, number one. It's important to make sure that, when we are doing this in schools, in colleges, in universities, we not only talk about what technology can do, but we also talk about how, as individuals, we have to be very cautious on what we are telling the technology to do, because technology is just a tool, right? It's just a tool. It does not have a will of its own. But you and me need to decide what it actually does. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yes. That is a very interesting intake, because I was thinking about we have the experts of indigenous scripts here, and our dream is one day we will get our indigenous script recognized by many people, just like in Google Translate, that people can just use English language that can be translated into many different form of languages. And also when we talk, just like you mentioned about Siri and then Alexa, when we talk about getting help from Siri using English, sometimes Siri or Alexa couldn't get what we say right now. So this is very interesting information about biases, because when we want to take indigenous script maybe to the next level, maybe for the creator here, when we can just talk about Javanese language, Sundanese language, input into the machine and the algorithm, then the algorithm needs to be to recognize the input, the level input of the fluent, the fluence of the person talking about the language. So is there any experience on that you are working before that touches this kind of thing, Miss Saloni?
So I wouldn't say about a script or a language, but the point that you just mentioned, training the algorithms. That is what is most importantly required. And you're right that a lot of information and a lot of updates they get. You lose them in the translation.
Yes.
But the only way to make sure that doesn't happen is that you train your algorithms and you train the machine that you're working with. And it will not happen in just one go. It takes thousands and thousands and thousands of reiterations to get that perfect, the perfect diction or the perfect pronunciation. That's what is required. I mean, we're talking about the languages. So I'm sure that one way is to make use of computer vision, right? You make use of computer vision, and now to train a machine to recognize a word in a way that is correct for, let's say, Indonesia, you will have to probably use like about thousands and thousands of pictures. Now, but see, that's what I'm saying. Technology is good, whatever. But then what's more important is the person who's using it. And he or she should know how to, first of all, you should know where you want to go, right? When you open your Google map, it is useless unless you know where you want to go. So you tell him, I want to come here. Then it starts working. If you don't know where you want to go, then not much can be done. So it's just a tool that we all should make use of in the best possible way.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Saloni, for your insight and for your take. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have heard the 5 presentation from our invited speakers. So let us move on to the Q&A session. To facilitate the time constraints, this session will only take a total of 4 questions. 2 questions maybe I will take from the floor, from the audience here, and 2 questions from the online participants. So you can just use the Q&A forum to post your question, and I will summarize the question, and I will try to ask the invited speakers to answer your questions. So please raise your hand and state your name, affiliations, and please keep your questions brief, simple, and to the point. Please, anyone? Here, do you have some question? Okay. Please state your name, affiliations, and yeah, just go to the front and ask the question. Who to address your question to, and keep it simple and to the point.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ilham from Pandi. Well, as we know, for about last 2 years, we have worked on the indigenous script of the Indonesia, and a lot of work to do. Yeah, after hearing about the explanation from the speakers, and the last one is a bit more interesting about the biases and how can we implement to make it not biased in the indigenous script context. First, I want to address actually to Mr. Mutu,
Mr. Mutu.
to give very great appreciation for his work on the developing the Tamil script from the scratch, from the non-internet era to until today, and it makes me goosebumps. So yeah, you know, because with only the passion, he can done everything that can be used for people. And yeah, I think that's like a reflection for us, especially in Indonesia, in the context of the indigenous scripts. We still have many work to do, and to make all the hope of the revitalization of the Indonesian script for the future. And thank you so much for the inspiration. The second is about the gender bias. I think it's quite funny that in the last 2 years, the activists of the indigenous scripts, I think almost all male. Yeah, and
This indigenous are male.
yeah, so the developer of the font, the driver, and most of the activists, yeah, I think it yeah also can be a reflection and how to think more about the involvement of women in the movement of the revitalization of the indigenous script in Indonesia. I think that's very important, and thank you for reminding us about this. And we have to make more equal level and involvement on every aspect. In this context, of course, the indigenous script development. That's only I have to talk to the comment. I think it's not a question, but yeah, this kind of inspiration for us, for all the activists, and the all of the stakeholders in this movement, I think. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ilham. Maybe the question is specifically for Miss Saloni. How to encourage women to participate in the technology fields? Maybe that is what Mr. Ilham wants to touch upon. So you can keep your answer. Now I would like to address the question from the online participant. This is from Rudy AdiTV Online for Dr. Sudono. The question is, for the exception of using the indigenous script as a signboard, is there any other way to promote the use of indigenous script to the larger audience? So that is the question for Dr. Sudono. And then, okay, from Elvi Latifah to Professor Uli. Professor Uli, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so the question is, in the many history of the indigenous scripts, specifically in the Sumatra Island, which one is the most challenging to digitalize and how to overcome the challenges? So that is the question for Professor Uli. And the last question is from Aditya Bayu to Mr. Mutu and Mr. Sarang. How do you encourage users to be more adventurous in design, but still respecting and learning the inherent characters of the script? Because sometimes when researching the authentic manuscripts or publication, we lose the interest because of how difficult it is. So maybe Mr. Muthu and Mr. Sarang can touch upon this. Now let us move to Ms. Saloni first to address the question.
You know, this is a question which I would like to know an answer to. I really would like to know an answer to. Tell me how this can be done, you know. It is required, we all understand it. But how do we actually make this happen is an enigma at this moment of time. I'll tell you what I try to do on my personal level. We run a lot of courses, a lot of programs for students of different age groups. And I have a team which works on it. As soon as we finish a course or as soon as we finish a batch, they usually, come back with a report, right? Like, this is what happened. Before I even see the report or before I even have a look at it, my first question to each one of them is, how many girls? How many girls are part of it? And most of the time, the answer is very dismal, most of the times. So we've also started doing very special batches, which are only for girls. We said, okay, this is a boot camp which is happening, which is only for girls. Let's do that. Maybe that's a way to encourage, for all you know, right? So I'm saying this is my personal thing, and everybody in my team knows that I'm not interested in the numbers, I know that will happen. But what I am interested is to know how many women, how many girls. Maybe if I keep asking that question enough number of times, maybe at least one of them will pick it up, and when they go out to get the registrations, maybe they will talk about it. And if they talk about it, there are fat chance, but there is a chance that the teachers, the educators, they will remember it next time when they send in the registrations. And maybe they will ask the girl students that, why don't you do it? So that's, something which I do for anything that I do. But believe me, the answer to the question that we have is not easy.
This is still a work in progress.
It's still work in progress.
Kind of society
Everybody
right now.
is trying to do a lot. I will not say that it's not happening. It is happening. And it's become very increasingly a topic which is being discussed in all the big corporates. So like in Intel, we have a separate team that works on diversity, which works on making sure that the women get more and more opportunities in all possible ways. And whatever we can do, whether it is getting women mentors, whether it is getting experts to talk to them on, how they can progress in their career. We also have a program where we say that women who have probably had a, like a break in their career because they were taking care of the families. How do we make sure that it's easier for them to come back? Do they require some extra support? So there are a lot of things that we are doing, but there is no answer to the question that you asked. We only have, as you said, it's work in progress. We are hoping that we would be able to reach somewhere soon. But thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Saloni, for the answer. Next up for Dr. Sudono about the answer on promoting the indigenous script to the larger audience.
On promoting it. At the speech by Governor, I think this morning also already mentioned that we have a lot of works discussing about the indigenous scripts. Many discussion about that. But we have to divide these issues into two. I think technically first, and Pandi already done it about this, and also how to familiarize or socialize people to aware about the indigenous. Or let's say when we go to Japan or South Korea, China, everything, and then written in their own characters, right? So I mean that even they say also in their own language. Yeah, I mean in daily life. So this is what I mean. So we have to change our mindset to become an indigenous script of writing in the Japanese or Sundanese or Balinese. But that is the problem, actually. How? Starting from where, right? Yeah. Old people now, just like us, also very limited understand about the indigenous scripts. This is the problem also, because if like Japan, maybe kids then learn about kanji, for example, but their father knows already. But we don't know how to teach our kids about the Japanese or Sundanese. This is problems come before that point, right? Yeah, I think just like a signboard in the streets and everything, and also I already mentioned that in the package, like sorry, it's already now. No, not text, right? But here, why we don't use indigenous script wherever noodles or plastic for wraps that should be written in a local characters, a local indigenous scripts. I mean, in a short sentence, all our daily life, whatever signboard or whatever, then it should be written in Japanese. Maybe a little by little, in some days, by days, months, years. Then I'm sure people that were at least familiar with that characters. Maybe it takes very long times, because we are actually, for me, from my point of view, we already left behind. But that, so if we want to come forward, then we need times. Takes time, I think. We cannot instantly. But we start with Pandi for technically, and then how people that aware about that words, a sentence, also should running together. I think that one.
So we need to embrace a multi-level cooperation from every part of the society, is what you are suggesting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. Next, we would like to give a space for Professor Uli to answer the question.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very interesting question. The most challenging of all languages, of all scripts, has clearly been the Batak script. And that is because of a particularity of the Batak script, which it does not share with any other script. And that is, if you want to write a sequence, a closed syllable, where the vowel is not an A, but any other vowel, So I can give you an example like peer, which is P-I-R, peer. Then the way it is written is P-R-I, and then the tanda bunuh, the Abhirama, which is counterintuitive because you would think that it is pa, I, R, and then the Virama. But no, that's not what happens. You have first the two consonants, P, R, and then you have the vowel, and then you have the Virama, the pattern. So that by itself did not really pose too much of a nightmare. And the Unicode team was able to find a solution. So whenever you write a word like peer and you write it in the Latin sequence, PIR, then it will automatically change reorder it. So it has been solved quite smartly. On the other hand, it has created a new problem. And the new problem is a lot of users have been using the font that I developed before, in which you had to write the script in the sequence it was originally written in the Batak script. So you had to write it P-R-I Virama. And of course, a lot of people are still used to it and they're doing it. And then they get an error. And it creates a lot of frustration. And so I tried to solve that, working with the Google Noto team. And it was a very frustrating experience because they didn't take me for serious. They said, oh, you don't understand it. This is how the Batak script works. Thank you for your question. So I really had, difficulties with them. So that was, one major challenge. A second challenge, and that is, where I also address Aditya Bayu's question a little bit. It was not directed to me, but he mentions my name in his question. Another problem that I had is that in the 19th century, the German missionaries, they introduced a Batak font. The Batak font that they used was not really very authentic, to say the least. It also was more Ankola Mandaling than Toba. And that was because they were in Ankola before, and then they went to Toba, and they started to teach the Ankola script in the local schools. So most Batak who know the script now, and who are all convinced that what they know is the real and authentic script, they completely disagree with my script and say, your script is wrong. And of course, what I did is I just, because I'm a philologist, so for me it was important that that the characters that I created are as close to the original in the original Batak script as possible. But a lot of Batak have difficulties accepting that. So this has been a little bit of a challenge. So and people are still split. There's a large segment of the society they have completely now adopted my script, my font, the Unicode font, as as the new standard, but there's still a lot of resistance, and you still have some textbooks which are very crudely written in Batak script that still use the very crude is probably the best term, script that was created by the German missionaries. So,
Professor, please be mindful of the time, maybe.
yeah, so there were social challenges as well as technological challenges.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Uli. Maybe for Mr. Mutu and Mr. Sarang can use the Q&A forum to answer the question, because the organizer has talked to me about the time constraints, because we will have a Friday prayer today. So we very much apologize for the time constraints to every participants online. So maybe you can see the question and answer forum to get your answer. We now reach the end of today's discussion. I would like to extend my gratitude towards our 5 invited speakers, Mr. Sarang Kulkarni, Mr. Mutu Nedumaran, Professor Uli, Dr. Sudono, and Ms. Salone Singhal, who gave their time to share their valuable expertise and experiences. And I would also like to thank everyone present, both the audience and the online participants, for tuning in and holding a great discussion today. Hopefully this discussion will be a fruitful one and will contribute to solve the challenges faced by the digital society forwards. With this, I will return the floor back to the MC. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please give a great round of applause to our 5 invited speakers.
Thank you, Bapak Case, as the moderator, for managing the discussion flow for today's seminar. Penutupan, closing. Iya, saya tutup. Iya. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have now covered the whole session of the seminar, and it is very well, I should say. A big hope that we could capture much valuable information, knowledge, and insight from all speakers. And as mentioned earlier, that this seminar is organized by the School of Multimedia and the Indonesian Internet Domain Name Registry, PANDI, in which the School of Multimedia is higher education institution under the Ministry of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia. Therefore, once again, we would like to extend our appreciation to His Excellency, Minister of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, His Honorable the Head of ICT Research and Human Resources Development Agency, Ministry of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, His Honorable the Head of the School of Multimedia, the Chairman of Indonesian Internet Domain Name Registry, PANDI, speakers, participants, and the organizing committee for making this seminar run successfully. Now we have arrived at the end of our program. I would like to end this program by saying, recover together, recover stronger. Thank you and see you in other occasion. Terima kasih, sampai jumpa lagi.